Also want to acknowledge the families who have lost loved ones in the last week again, and also our workers. Taoiseach, I got 5 questions for you. The first one relates to workers. Very worryingly, as of May 26th, over 32% of COVID cases have been with healthcare workers, and we're an outlier. Analysis for the ECDC shows the infection rates amongst healthcare workers in the US is 3%, 4% in China, 10% in Italy, 20% in Spain. Granted, they could have changed since that date, but they're the rough figures. So we're an outlier. So both SIP2 and all the nursing unions have raised this. It's a deep concern. Why are we an outlier? And when will the HSE and HSPC do an analysis of what has gone wrong here? Because something has seriously gone wrong here for that figure to exist, 32%. So will you commit to that analysis being done and published as soon as possible? Second issue is in relation to secondary healthcare. Where is the reopening plan from the HSE? It's been announced a number of times. One of the 5 key criteria is secondary morbidity and secondary mortality. Where's the modelling on this? I've been raising this now for a month. Where is the plan? Why hasn't it been announced? It's deeply worrying. Dr. Anthony O'Connor of the IMO said here in this chamber that conservatively we will have 1 million people waiting for appointments. And that's conservatively. 3.2 million people get appointments every year. So the government made a political decision in the last week not to renew the contract with private hospitals. Made a political decision not to look at purchasing private hospitals. So the political consequences of that is that we are going to have huge backlogs, increased morbidity and increased mortality. That is a political consequence of a political decision. So where is the plan? I want to see it, Taoiseach, no screening, mental health services, disabilities, communities, electives, a whole range of other areas. And we need to see the modelling and the plan for how we're going to deal with this. People are really, really regressing. Brings me to the roadmap, Taoiseach. I think people are getting ahead of the politicians, which is often the case. Professor Jack Lambert is right when he said, we as a nation need to think rationally again. So we need to look at what is high risk and low risk. And while I accept what you said in relation to the 3 weeks intervals for data analysis, surely we should analyse and see, do we need 5 phases and instead have 4 phases? Because what we were looking at when we set out, or the government set out the 5 phases, and what we're looking at now is different. It's moved. We now know we have to live with this virus for a considerable period of time. And we can't put everything into hibernation, whether it's society, the economy, but particularly secondary health services, or secondary issues in relation to healthcare, which I've always raised. So will we look at the rigidity? And will you look at changing the roadmap into 4 phases? I also want to ask you, will you also look at the communication process, the daily briefings that are going on? And are they causing more confusion now? Because ultimately, at the very beginning of this, people would ask me, well, do we listen to the Taoiseach or do we listen to the CMO? Because at times, there can be different messaging. I always said you listen to the Taoiseach. The last few weeks, I've been saying you listen to the CMO. That's not the way our country should work. And if there are going to be daily briefings, can the daily briefings be about all public health issues, about the secondary morbidity and mortality, about all the issues in this plan that hasn't been launched yet? Because we need that. And I also think that the government needs to get in control of the message, because when there are contradictions between what official NEFID is saying through the CMO, through what the government is saying, and then we have a range of public health experts, all very eminent, who are making their own different pronouncements, then that reads confusion. 2 other issues, Taoiseach. In the pandemic payment to young people, 135,000 people from the ages of 18 to 24 are on the COVID payment, many of them working in very low pay in hospitality, tourism and retail. And your decision is actually going to strike at a whole cohort of young people in this country. And it's not right. It goes against what people are doing across other jurisdictions as regards trying to ensure that there is finance out there. But particularly, it's a slight on young people. They don't have the same opportunities for jobs because of where they are in life. And many of them, by the way, would have moved into full-time work only for the time of when COVID hit. So they're being discriminated against. And please don't do this. As far as I'm concerned, as far as the Labour Party is concerned, this is discrimination. It's ageist. It's against a whole sector of our community. And finally, Taoiseach, black lives do matter, and we don't have to look far in this country for discrimination and racism. And Taoiseach, will you commit in relation to yourself and the current government or your party that we will end direct provision as we all know it now? Because that is the real discrimination, the real racism that is going on in this country, as I'm sure you'll acknowledge yourself. It has to end. We all have to make sure, collectively, politically, we end it. What's going on in Milltown Malby at the moment in relation to the standard of food people are eating, in relation to leaks coming through the roof, in relation to the fact that people can't even leave where they are because they have no form of exercise in the area, it's not humane. So Taoiseach, will you also commit to that? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Kelly. Taoiseach.
Thanks very much, Deputy. Just in relation to those young people who were working part-time before the pandemic and lost their job as a consequence of the pandemic, the changes that we made tomorrow will ensure that those young people are no worse off than they were before the pandemic. But the most important thing for those young people, though, I think, is not the pandemic unemployment payment, it's enabling them to get back to work. And the fact that the shops will reopen next week will allow a lot of them to go back to work. And let's try and get hospitality, tourism, hotels open as quickly as possible so they can get back to work too. And that's the solution to this, in my view, isn't extending welfare payments forever. It's enabling people to go back to their jobs and get back to work and earn more than they did before. As I think Deputy pointed out correctly, 32% of the cases have been among healthcare workers, and that is a very high rate. But I think it's important not to misunderstand it. 32% of COVID cases were healthcare workers. It's not the case that 32% of healthcare workers had COVID. It's about 7%. So about 7% of healthcare workers contracted COVID and tested positive for it. 93% didn't. So I think sometimes that's misunderstood in the way it's reported and spoken about. We don't know why that is. Part of it might be down to a lot of testing. We're one of the very few, if not the only countries in the world that tested all the staff in our nursing homes. So that might be part of it. And of course, healthcare workers can pick up COVID anywhere, just like anyone else does, at home, particularly if they're living with other people, in the shops and also in the workplace. And yes, I agree, analysis does need to be done about it, and I can't commit to that, but it's not an analysis that will be easily done, or may not actually come to any conclusions, but it should be done nonetheless. In terms of the plan to resume normal healthcare, that is being developed by the HSE. I understand it is due to, or has just gone to the HSE board, and until it's approved by the HSE board, it won't come to government. On the whole issue of the daily briefings by the CMO and his team, I think that the briefings by the CMO and his team are very good. I think a lot of people find them very informative. I know different countries have adopted a different approach. Across the water, for example, the daily briefings are always led by a minister or the Prime Minister. I actually prefer our approach here, where it's led by the CMO and led by medical experts. I think that's a better one. And I did see across the water, where the CMO or where an expert was asked an opinion, the politician stopping the expert from answering the question. That's not my approach. And this government has never taken that approach of saying that, we don't want to hear the experts now. They get their own press conference every day, and I think it's a good thing that is the case, and will continue, not forever, but it will continue. Just in relation to direct provision, I absolutely accept what you say. A lot of direct provision accommodation is substandard, and that needs to change. Some of it's a good standard, own door self-catering. Some of it is a bad standard, and that absolutely needs to change. And certainly the last government tried to do that, and the next government, I think, if I'm part of it, will want to do that. But I think we need to understand the difference between direct provision and a man who was killed by the police by having somebody step on his neck. Direct provision ultimately is a service offered by the state. It's not compulsory, it's not a form of detention, and involves people being provided with free accommodation, food, heat, lighting, healthcare, education, and also some spending money. It's not the same thing as a man being killed by the police, but it is substandard accommodation in some cases, and yes, that does need to change.
Deputy Roisin.